Hello, it's Aaron Giles, your friendly neighborhood GSCC webmaster. Today I want to introduce you to the changes that I have just rolled out onto the GSCC website. We are going with sort of a new look, and I want to make sure that you understand sort of what's available on the website and just kind of walk you through what's different so that you can be prepared to make use of it. If we take a quick look at the previous incarnation of the website, you'll notice a few obvious changes. Looking at the old site, a few things I'm going to point out here just to kind of set the baseline for where we're coming from. At the top, you see we have this sort of floating menu bar with pop-up menus. It's kind of very mid-2000s, mid-2010s, I mean. At the top of the screen, we have the Seattle Sings banner. And then right on this homepage, we have the main concert calendar and our featured member here. So the idea with the sort of the new redesign was to kind of freshen up the look a little bit, introduce a little more or color, and strengthen our brand a little bit more. And so if we switch back to the new design, you'll see a few changes right away. First of all, you'll see the menu at the top is gone. Again, that's sort of a 2010s era design, and in the more mobile era, menus like that aren't very common. You'll also notice that the top banner now says Greater Seattle Choral Consortium. We definitely had some concerns that the Seattle Sings branding was a little confusing to people because it wasn't really mentioning the Choral Consortium, which is really the hosting entity here, and so we decided to bring that front and center. The other thing you'll notice is that the calendar is not on the front page. That was sort of a deliberate decision because having the calendar on the front page really limited what we could do with the rest of the interface here and sort of distracted from a lot of the other things we have to offer beyond the calendar. And so the idea was to make the calendar very easy and quick to access. You can see it's the topmost item here, but that it's not staring you in the face when you get to our site. For me personally, I wanted to introduce more color, more graphics into at least where you land when you first come to our site. And so the idea was to pick some bold colors with some photos behind, taken from various sources that sort of represent each section here. And so now what I'd like to do is just kind of walk you through each section. We'll go over some of the changes that are there. A lot of pages haven't really changed that much, so you shouldn't feel too intimidated once you get beyond this first page, which is really just sort of think of it as your launching point for where to get wherever you need to go. So it's starting at the top here, the online event calendar. This is basically the same calendar you had before. It's got a bit of a fresher look. The week banners are a little more obvious to separate the weeks, so it's a little bolder in that regard. We once again focus on concerts more so than non-concert events, but we do show non-concert events as well. So for example, this week in September 18th to 24th, you can see that there's actually no concerts this week, but we do have 2 auditions coming up, and you can click on this and it will pop up the information for the auditions. One of the important things to note about the new design here is that if there are multiple types of events happening, then each will have its own bar. So for example, if there's auditions and master classes happening on the same week, there'll be a bar for the auditions and a bar for master classes. This mirrors what I've been doing in the email for a while, and I kind of liked that design, and so I kind of moved it into the main concert thing here. Another thing that you'll notice as you're scrolling through is that some descriptions are truncated. You'll see that they have a little read more link there. I originally put a 500 character limit on event descriptions to kind of make it so that I didn't have to truncate things, but people quickly figured out how to get around that through copy and paste. And so for quite a while, you've been able to dominate entire pages worth of listings in the online event listing here because you could put however long you wanted in there and I didn't truncate it. So now the new calendar will make sure that nobody can dominate for too much space here. And so you'll have a much more even distribution of concerts. And so as you scroll down here, you can see that it's a little easier to parse. Here's an example of there being a lecture and a class and a sing-along happening the same week, and you can kind of poke them out, bring them out individually. The other thing I want to mention here is that each of the event pages and the member pages have been brought up to this new design as well. So when you click on a concert name, you will get, you won't see this because you're not an admin, but you will see a description of the concerts here, and this also has a sort of a new, fresher look that meshes with the current design. So that's the bulk of the changes on this page. As usual, we have the search button here. Buttons are a little more obviously buttons now instead of kind of the boring squares we used to have before. And you can search for events of different types. One interesting thing I will note is that if you search for types that are not concerts, they'll open up automatically, so you won't have to click that blue bar to make them visible. This kind of just helps us pop things out a little more easily. But these are the same search controls that you've had before. So going back to the main menu here, I'm going to skip the second item because that's a new item that we'll get back to later, and it's sort of a new thing that I want to discuss in more detail. Let's move on to things we're familiar with, like the choir finder. So the choir finder isn't very different from what we had before. It's got a fresher look. I kind of made things look a little nicer here, but overall it behaves the same as it did before. I improved the language and the search parameters so it's a little more obvious. For example, specifying the days of the week that you can rehearse. It's a little easier to say, well, I can't rehearse on Thursdays or Fridays, so take those out of contention, or I can't rehearse on Mondays, and you can kind of see the search results update as you go along here. Everything else, you go through here, you can select your location. So, I can say my location, which is, on the east side, so that reduces the number of options here. You can specify your identified gender. So since I'm male, I specify that. And what that does is it eliminates, for example, all women choirs so that I don't see those in the list. You can specify your age category as an adult, whether you want non-auditioned, auditioned, or professional choirs. So I want an auditioned choir here. I'm sort of interested in classical or various choirs. And now you can see I'm down to 15 choirs here, but maybe I want to be a little closer to home when I rehearse, so let's reduce that down to 10 miles of where I'm at on the east side. And you can see, I've got Kirkland Choral Society. Apparently, because Seattle Pro Musica rehearses not too far off I-90, I can get there within 10 miles, and you can see which groups are available there. There's a button which has been there from the beginning, is still available, which you can just click, and it basically just automatically does a search on the calendar page for all auditions. So you can see, in fact, it's populated with events of type audition, and that's just sort of a quick shortcut to get you to this view here. Going back to the main page, our member spotlight, this replaces our featured member that we had on the previous situation. And so this week it's apparently the Everett Chorale. The Everett Chorale is kind of unique in that they have multiple ensembles within their organization. And so that view has been cleaned up a little bit. So for each ensemble, they get, at the top you get an overall organization view, and then each ensemble gets its own set of photos and descriptions. And then the Snoqualmie County Youth Chorus, which is their second ensemble, has their own description and own information here. So again, this is mostly just a visual refresh, not really any functionally different behavior here. We do have a new page for Seattle Sings events. And so the idea was to group all our festivals and big sings and any other events that we're doing to this one page, sort of an entry point for here. So at the top we have upcoming events, and the idea is to talk about our upcoming events, as you saw from Wendy's email pretty recently, that we have a big sing combined with our annual meeting here, and we have a date for that, so that's good. We're also providing kind of vague information about what we know, so like we don't know exactly when this children's choir event will happen, but it's planned for 2024. And we don't know too much about the Seattle Sings Choral Festival, but the next one is tentatively being planned for 2025, so you can always come here, hopefully, and see the latest information about what's coming up, and then also get access to information on our past events. And these are just the existing pages that we had for our past events brought up to the new look. The member organizations is the list of organizations you can view by logos. You can see all our cool logos that we have here. It's kind of a fun page to browse, and you can browse by region or by the year that they joined the GSCC, so you can see all our new members here, and all kinds of different ways to look at it there. You can also find everybody's YouTube channels and Facebook pages by just clicking here and then clicking on the various entries here to get to their YouTube pages, so that's kind of handy. Now finally, about the GSCC, this is sort of a catch-all page for just information. It's got our mission statement, information about joining. You can click the button to join, information about donating, a list of the board of directors, and our contact information. And then if you scroll to the bottom, you will see that there's links to our social media sites, and then you will see the members only access, which you can click here, and that takes you to our members only area. Now I did make a few changes here, not too many. The main thing you should notice is that at the top, this area used to be at the bottom and nobody ever saw it. So I moved it to the top. So these are basically resources for members that are not specific to your group that you manage. So for example, you can jump to the mailing list on Google Groups or remember what the email address is here. That's kind of convenient. You can look here to see the program ads, which we ask everybody to put in their program. It's just a quarter-page ad. You can see the website badges, which we ask you to put on your website with information on how to do that. And then if you need any of our other branding information, that's all available here as well. Heading back, I created this event scheduler. It's kind of a real simple thing, but the idea is basically to show you a heat map of where all upcoming concerts are throughout the coming 12 months, and also show you where the holidays are in case it's easy for you to forget or it helps you, to remember where they're at. So for each of these days, you can see that December has its usual hot weekends in the first thing, and you can hover over this and see a list of everybody who's performing, and you can actually click on those to jump to the events and see what's going on there. So calendar views aren't very useful to the general public because, especially in our case, there's a bunch of empty days in the middle, and then you have everything bunched on the weekend. So the list view that we have for our main page is more useful for that. But in terms of your planning, you can see when other people have laid down dates and maybe figure out weekends when things aren't happening as heavily, and that might help you with your planning in the future. So this is continuously updated, so as time moves forward, it'll just roll forward with new information. We have a Sunday sessions archive now, so the Sunday sessions that have been going on for the last couple years are all available here. Items that are public are labeled public. Everything else you should kind of treat as a members only perk that you've got going on here. And then our venues database, which has always been there, now just has the new look. If you're not an admin, you won't see the delete option. I don't want people deleting venues because that's useful historical information, but you can go through and see our list of venues. You can do searches based on location or venues that people are using for concerts or rehearsals. You can say venues that are a particular type, like you want to look for a church or a concert hall or a library or a restaurant. They have all kinds of things there. You can see what people have used. You can also search by name. So that's a good way to find a venue. And then recently we added new features. So let me scroll down to one venue in particular, St. Margaret's Episcopal Church, which is what I'm familiar with. One thing I will point out is when you're in this venues list here, you can click a link, click on the name of the venue, and it'll show you sort of a summary information here. So it'll give you the address and the website, so you don't have to actually go view it. It'll also tell you who's rehearsing there and who's had concerts there, when the last concert was that happened there, that kind of thing. But if you go to edit the venue, you will see that it's got the usual information about booking, additional details. You can fill this all out. We have a new section here on accessibility, so you can specify accessibility information, including some details here. One thing I will note, this applies to all the different fields where you have this kind of details field where you can kind of free form write information. It was previously generally limited to just 100 characters, which I found was pretty tight for some people. They were really jamming that information there. So I kind of expanded that out to 250. So in general, not just in the venues, but also in your events and in your member description, if you remember trying to enter information there and it was really tight and limiting, you should have more room there. But anyway, so accessibility information there. We have information on what instruments are available and then some photos. So there's a lot of information that can be put in here, and it's kind of overwhelming, I admit. But if we can get more venues to have this information, I think overall we'll benefit, because then if enough venues had that information, I would be able to add search terms for it. So you could search for venues that had, a pipe organ, or you could search for venues that had, accessible seating or that kind of thing. As it is right now, so few venues have any information about them that it's kind of hard to really search on them. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you would like to help this effort, just find a venue that you're familiar with in our venues database, click edit, and just try to fill out as much information as you can. And then hopefully over time we'll get enough of a critical mass of information that people can really take advantage of this database. But even in its current form, just being able to search by location and find certain types of venues, that can be pretty helpful. One thing you can also say is, only display venues used for concerts, and now here's a list of all the venues where people have had concerts. So that can be pretty handy right there. So that's it for that. And then we'll move back to members only. And then our official documents page. If you're not an admin, you won't see the ability to upload new documents, but we have refreshed this area here with latest information, so you can see our insurance policies if you're into that kind of thing, our approved budgets up to the current year, our annual reports, meetings of the board, which needs a little bit of update, annual meeting minutes, and bylaws, and various other documentation all the way back to our original articles of incorporation. So anyway, if you're curious to find out what we're up to, that's a great way to do it. And then we have a page of general nonprofit resources. If you have anything you want to add here, this is kind of a bare bones page, just some references to tech resources and other fundraising options that are available to you. So feel free to check that out. And then below here, you'll see your profile. And you can click on like Summer Fling Singers, which is my group here. You can click on this to edit your profile. And one thing you'll notice is that we've got a different set of buttons here. So the top, what I've done is I've separated out the contacts from the rest of the information about your group. So if you need to modify your contacts, now you have a simple spot to just jump there and do it. And then your organization information. This is just your contact info and your logos and your description. Doesn't have your contacts anymore. And then your ensemble information, that's all the same as it was before, with photos and various other things that you can add. This is all unchanged. And of course your events, I don't have any events coming up, so you won't see anything there, but if you have events, then you'll be able to edit them there. And then a button to view your member page in case you want to jump out and view that, or go back to where you're at the members only page. So that's about it for the baseline changes. The next thing I want to point out is the new Concert Passport. So this is a new thing. I actually wanted to launch it and then COVID hit and sort of been on the back burner for the last 3 years. But we decided that this semester is a good time to do it. The idea behind the Passport is that it's a way to kind of gamify going to concerts among our members. And by gamifying it, sort of make it fun. People can win prizes. And the idea is that people can show up to a concert. They use the app on their phone. In fact, this whole area of the site is kind of designed for a phone, so I'm going to switch into mobile mode here so you can kind of see what it would look like on a phone. And the idea is that you can see I have some test events here. I'm signed in here, but if I wasn't signed in, let me sign out here. What you'll see is this is the first time, and so you'll log in. You'll notice that you've got a place to enter your email address. You've got a leaderboard, which shows you the people who have attended the most events. So that's kind of a fun thing. Right now, I'm the person that's there, but that'll all be deleted before we go live. In fact, that's probably gone at this time. And a little Q&A section here about what the Passport is, what the prizes are, how they're awarded, and what we do with the email address. So what the idea here is we gamify it for the audience, but we also, you guys benefit as well. So the idea is that they sign up with us. That puts them on our mailing list that we send currently once a week. And so once a week, they'll get a list of updated member concerts, which is great. And in addition, people who check into your concerts, you can come back to our website. And I haven't put this in yet, but the data's all there. You can come back to our website in the members only area and say, hey, who are all the people who checked into our concerts? Give me their email address and you can put them on your mailing list. So it's an easy way to get people on your mailing list for a low cost. So if we go through the process of entering your email, and click this to continue. It's going to check it out, and then it's going to say that since I'm already registered, it's going to send an email to my inbox. And so in a moment, it will come through, and I will click it, and it says, okay, now you're registered on this device. You go here. And so what you'll see at the top is a list of all the events you've checked into. I've got a couple of test events here. If I want to check into a new event, I just click this button here. It gets your location from your phone, looks for events that are within like a half mile of where you're at, and then you can pick them. So right now, obviously nothing's going on. I'm recording this in the morning and there's no concerts happening, so I can't really demonstrate that for you. But what will happen is in a normal situation, you'll see the events nearby you. You tap the one that you're currently at and it'll check you in for that one. There are some limitations to prevent you from, abusing the system. So you have to wait 2 hours between every event check-in, and you can't check into the same event multiple times, even if they, have multiple instances. So for example, if there's a concert on that has, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday show, you can't check into all of them and get 3 check-ins for that. You can only check for one event. The goal is to spread the love, to encourage people to attend more different concerts and not the same concert over and over again. So the idea is that every time they check in, that's an entry into our pool. And then at the end of December, we're splitting the year into 2. So this first half of the year, or the second half of the year actually, from July 1st to December 31st is one time period. And at the end of that, we will, from the pool of people who checked in, we will pick some random names out of a hat, give them some prizes, and then start over again in January to encourage people to attend concerts in the spring. You'll see below here there's a personalized code, and this is an opportunity for you. Right now there's no defined use for this, except that you could potentially offer discounts or other special incentives for people to show that code to you. The idea is that it's a 4-digit code for everybody, so you don't have a lot of writing to do if you have somebody at the table and they show you the code. But if you write down that code, you'll be able to go into the members only site, type in that code, and get that email address. So even if they don't check in to your concert, you can still get the email information from their code. But you could also use that as an opportunity to say, to verify that they're a part of the passport program and maybe offer, a little discount or something if you want to do that. In fact, I have some ideas to potentially in the future allow you to enter a special field in gigs for your event where you can say, here's a discount for passport members. And then we might feature that on our website where we'll say, hey, passport people come to this concert because they're offering a little bit of a discount or a special bonus for coming here, and that can also help to drive people to concerts more. So this is just sort of a new thing. I think there's a lot we can do with this for this first semester. Really just trying to get it out there, get the bugs ironed out. I'm sure there'll be a few hiccups along the way since there's technology involved. But I think it's an exciting way to get things to move forward and to kind of engage with our audiences a little more directly and to help you market to your audiences a little bit more and just kind of collaborate with us on getting more people out to see our member concerts. So anyway, I hope you found this useful, that you enjoy the new look. And if you run into any problems, of course, let me know right away. tech@seattlesings.org or just aaron@aarongiles.com. Those are both fine email addresses to use, and I will try to be responsive to anything that comes up in the near future. Thanks for listening.